Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army. Army officers say the missile, found sometime last week, has been inspected at Roswell, New Mexico.
Join the stars of the Ancient Aliens TV show. David Childress will guide you through the evidence left behind and the secrets being guarded from mankind. Have artifacts been left on other planets? Mike Barrow will take you to other worlds and explore the truth about the secret space program and the lies NASA tries to hide. What does the UK government really know about UFOs? Former Ministry of Defense UFO investigator Nick Pope will present the real X-Files. Join Grant Cameron, who will provide detailed disclosure plans the world governments are working to. Or will mankind make contact first through our collective consciousness? One of the world's leading female researchers, Paula Harris, will share incredible testimonies from leading whistleblowers on ET contact and what's next for our world. It's time to believe and raise consciousness. Join like-minded souls on Saturday, June 23, 2018 for Awakening, Bowler's Exhibition Centre, Manchester, UK. What do you believe?
Broadcasting from the UK and across the world online. You're now watching The Moore Show, and I'm your host, Kevin Moore. Now, for the next hour, I'll be covering subjects which will open up your mind and provide you with information you may have never heard before. Now, on today's show, I'm about to be joined by my guest, Jayne Harris. Now, Jayne is a paranormal researcher, writer, and filmmaker with 19 years of experience investigating and evaluating alleged hauntings. Now, she's also a co-founder of HD Paranormal, an organisation which has helped over 3,500 families deal with paranormal activity in their homes and businesses. Now, she's also a consultant on TV and radio shows worldwide. Now, mediumship runs in Jayne's family on both her maternal and parental side. However, Jayne maintains she is doubtful whether she has inherited the gift despite strong intuition. Now, she's also the author of What Dwells Within and Peggy the Doll, both of which became Amazon's best-selling supernatural titles in their first week of release, and her debut documentary, Who Put Bella in the Witch Elm, which explores a mystery World War II unsolved murder. Now, Jayne Harris, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Kevin.
It's lovely to have you on. Thank you for coming on. I know I look like right now like I've just got out of bed. I swear I haven't, right? I know. I just couldn't be bothered gelling my hair today. I always gel my hair, right? And I'm just fed up with doing it right now. So I thought, I'm going to go all natural.
Casual.
Yeah.
Cool and casual.
Make this casual. I know, because some people are going to comment like, God, look at the state of him. What kind of presenter is that? But it's all good. Crazy time. I was just saying, lot of air right now. I'm just about to launch my campaign for my Indiegogo video. By the time this goes out, They Call Us channels. The documentary will be live as an Indiegogo campaign. So I'll be sticking the campaign details below this video because it's such a mad time right now. I'm not having chance to sort of get ready to prepare for guests, which I hate doing, but actually it makes the interview a lot more interesting in some respects. Now, I got you on board because you contacted me in regards for something else entirely different. And when I saw your bio as a UK female paranormal investigator, I thought, that is so different. There is not enough women in this field. So this is going to be cool. How the hell did you get into this?
Well, to be honest, Kevin, I can't remember a time when I didn't have an interest in an afterlife in the paranormal. My parents are very into spiritualism. Apparently we had mediums in our family through the generations. I don't think I've inherited any of that gift. But the interest was there, and I grew up listening to especially my dad talking about his experiences. And really, I suppose the catalyst for it all was when I was 17. My cousin, who was 16, died in a car accident, obviously very sudden. very shocking, very tragic. And it really kind of boosted me to want to understand more. Is there an afterlife? Are we able to communicate with those in the spirit world, if there is a spirit world? So it started out as a hobby, really. And I was 15 when I went on my first ghost hunt, I suppose you'd call it. And it was very boring. It was very cold, rained actually, and I was completely outnumbered. It was all men. And I suppose it was just a bit of a novelty, really, for them to have me come along. But over the years, I became more and more fascinated. So, yeah, I was lucky. As I say, it started out just as a hobby and an interest, really.
Wow. Okay. And with that interest in the family, I mean, that will make an impact, won't it? Because we you know that. So, how have they taken the work that you do now then?
They love it. They were. I mean, when I was at college, I studied psychology. So I think at one point the plan was that I would probably go into counselling. So that was always the route I was taking. But it kind of deviated a little bit into parapsychology and then more paranormal investigation. So they're really proud now that I've written a couple of books and I've just finished a documentary. And but of course it is one of those things where you tell someone you're a paranormal investigator and they start singing the Ghostbusters theme tune, because it's not really very well understood. People think that you go around zapping ghosts and causing, using Ouija boards and holding seances, and it's actually much more boring than that a lot of the time. And there is a counselling element to it. I mean, you're going into people's homes and people are quite distraught, they're nervous, they're not sure what's going on, they're worried that you'll think they're crazy. So there is an element to it where you have to be a really, really good listener. And I think all of those skills that I picked up from my parents when I was younger, they were great. If I had a problem, I could just go to my parents and talk it through. So I think they're quite proud now that I'm putting all of that to good use.
That's really, really good. That's really good. And when you mentioned documentary, what documentary was that you've just worked on?
It's called Who Put Bella in the Witch Elm. It's based on a true unsolved crime. In World War II, a lady's remains were found in a hollow tree in Hagley Wood near Stourbridge. I grew up in Stourbridge. And I saw there's quite a lot of graffiti around who put Bella in the witch elm, and it's quite an enduring mystery. So a couple of years ago, about 2.5 years ago, I became really interested in the story, spoke to local people, and I just thought this is fascinating because there are lots of different conspiracy theories about who she was, who killed her, why she was even there. And they include witchcraft and Nazi espionage. And there's even a theory that she was maybe a gypsy because they were known to rest. There was travellers' rest nearby. So it just fascinated me. So we did that. The plan was for maybe a 10-minute YouTube video. But the more people I spoke to, I quickly realised there's no way we'll get this into 10 minutes. So it became an hour-long documentary.
Excellent. Well done. Well done. So you've got a main job and this is your part-time job?
No, this is what I do. I write and we investigate the paranormal, so we visit people in their homes. I'm really lucky that what I used to do, I used to work for local authority in mental health. And then when I had my children, I reduced my hours from full-time to part-time. But I'd always done this as a hobby, really. And then when my eldest daughter was about 3, I just decided that this is what I want to do now. And if I don't really devote the hours to the writing and the research, I'll never get as involved as I want to. So that's what I did.
And how deep do you want to go with this?
Well, this is my life now. I can't imagine not doing this. Over the last probably 3 or 4 years, I've got more involved in the media side of things, and I consult on radio and TV quite a bit. Because it's scary, but I've got almost 20 years experience now. When I think about that and I think about the first time I went out on an investigation, it seems 2 years ago, 3 years ago. So it's one of those things where as you get older, your life moves much more quickly anyway.
Absolutely.
And I see I see my children growing up, and I think, wow, I'm really fortunate because I get to work from home too. So although I tend to work in the evenings a lot, which isn't always ideal.
I think I must have kept myself tucked away because, having done this show for 8 years now on YouTube, I've never really done anything with the media, as in, what you're doing with, speaking to media outlets about the paranormal and stuff. But, I guess I have built myself up a decent platform for this subject. But I'll be honest with you, doing these interviews has really expanded my mind, and it's become, I don't see myself as a host anymore. Forget that label. This was just my enabler to get me to look beyond what I thought I knew about the paranormal. So I wonder what and I wonder how far you're prepared to go down the rabbit hole. So we're going to get into that now. So what do you think you know about the nature of what it is you're investigating?
I think that there is no one size fits all when it comes to the paranormal. So you can't say that everyone who wakes up in the middle of the night and believes they've seen a figure at the foot of the bed is seeing a ghost. The more people I speak to and the more experiences I have, actually, I'm more inclined to believe that possibly 80% are psychological experiences, things that we can explain because we don't fully understand the functions of the human mind. We're complex, we're multi-layered, as is the universe around us. And I think to some degree, we're not supposed to know exactly what's going on. I do believe that there is life after death. I do believe that the human soul doesn't cease to function when the body does. But I don't think it's as readily accessible. I don't think we can as easily communicate with those.
That's where I disagree. That's where I disagree. But that's okay. That's okay. That's okay.
Yeah.
Okay. What? Okay. Have you ever done any sort of? Have you connected with the spiritual side yourself?
I've seen things. I've seen things that I can't explain. I've used divination tools, and to some degree, yes, I believe that possibly I have been in communication with someone on the other side. But for me, it's came through a third party. So I visited psychic mediums who've told me things that I know 100% they could not have known. They couldn't have researched about me. They couldn't have researched about people I knew that have passed over. So
what is that then?
I've been researching the theory of collective consciousness quite a bit. I'm not 100% sold on it, but I do think that we do carry around information about ourselves. We don't necessarily give cues. I don't think that's how psychic mediums pick up their information. I do believe that on occasion they are in communication with the spirit world, with people in the afterlife. But also I think that for whatever reason, they are able to tap into our own subconscious and give us information maybe that we want to hear.
What material have you read? What material have you studied in this field?
Well, I've been really interested in Sheldrake's theories and his work with plants and the collective consciousness, because the idea of pets as well, that a dog will know when its owner's due to come home before it does and will start barking at the door and that kind of thing. And I think that in some way goes to prove that there's more going on than the three-dimensional world we see around us. I think that we are all connected. But there's a lot more to research. And as I said, I don't think we'll know 100% until it is our time. I don't think we're supposed to.
Well, what if the truth of what you're looking at, what if the work that you're doing right now was really because you're trying to find your truth on, is there more than this reality? And what is that? You're not maybe doing the work for what the reasons you think you are. Maybe there's deeper reasons for why you've come into this lifetime to choose to do this work.
Possibly, yeah. I mean, I've always been quite a spiritual person. Unfortunately, modern day life doesn't allow you to take the time out, doesn't allow me anyway, the time out that maybe I would like to explore that. But certainly working with people who believe they're having paranormal experiences, it does for my husband, I work with my husband, and he went from being a very strong believer in hauntings and in ghosts to now being much more skeptical. And that's purely because a large majority of cases that we work on, we do find rational explanations for. And I always go into it actually wanting to be able to tell people that, yes, your nan is visiting you, or there is something going on in your home, but it's not always like that.
Maybe most of these hauntings, the genuine ones, are not nan or Auntie Ethel trying to come through. Maybe it's not that. Maybe Auntie Ethel's not going to come through that way to scare people. Okay, what about parallel realities?
So the idea that actually there are no ghosts, but we coexist with other layers in time.
Ghosts. I mean, that's such a paranormal word, isn't it? It's a human word that we use, but yeah. Okay. Well. Okay. Yeah. What if, as cutting edge science is saying, that there's an infinite number of multiverses, an infinite number of you and me right now doing something a little bit different from what we're doing right now, as in the soul chooses not to have one incarnation in this particular timeline, but an infinite number of splits to come down here to get multifacets of itself incarnated to know itself when it crosses back over. So yeah, I mean, what if some of that is bleed through from alternative universes?
Yeah, and would that explain deja vu? Quite possibly, because at times you get those time slips, those overlaps, those points at which you think, hang on, I've done this before.
Exactly, deja vu. I mean, what if, we talk about past lives, future lives, but what if we get to live this life a number of times? What if if me and you have lived this life a number of times and are now doing something a little bit different compared to what we were doing on the interview before?
It's quite possible, isn't it? And it could also explain why when you meet certain people, you feel like you've known them before, or that you've known them a long time, you instantly feel comfortable with people. Maybe that, again, is evidence of that.
Well, what if that as well is on top of that is obviously in a past life, you've been together before as well?
Yeah, of course. It's infinitely fascinating, because anything that you put under that umbrella of the unexplained, I think, will potentially remain unexplained. And most of us,
for as long as we don't want to look into it ourselves. So what is your personal looking into this? What are you delving into? I mean, okay, so the paranormal, the ghost hauntings, that gets you so far, but it's only ever going to get you so far. Where are you in your own internal stuff going deeper than that to try to find your own truth beyond just looking at haunted properties?
Well, I think that there is much more to the paranormal than just haunted houses and people experiencing what they believe are ghosts or visitations or whatever else. And it's a difficult one, because that kind of stuff is the stuff that goes on privately, isn't it? You don't sort of put yourself out there and discuss your own spirituality very much. And I think that's probably because a lot of us don't really understand our own spirituality.
I do.
We don't have the time.
I do.
That's fantastic. That's really good. And that shows that you have had the time to devote to that.
I think it goes beyond that. I think it's not the time. I think it's the... most of us are switched off. Most of us are asleep on this planet. And then there's the people that are awakened. Now, I'd probably class you as an awakened person, and because you're awakened, you call it the time. I say, well, actually, it's more than that. It's because you're awakened. And are you a catalyst to help other people awaken? So when you're going on to the radio shows and other TV shows and stuff and doing this work, yes, you're skimming the surface. It's very, it's the mundane stuff. But is that the spark that person or those people need that are going to hear that's going to make a difference? So I don't think this work will ever make a difference in the mainstream. I don't think it works like that, because most people, maybe they've got soul contracts to be asleep right now and not wake up. Yeah. But I think that you serve a purpose to go in there to try to wake people up with even the ideas of talking about hauntings. That is a way in for some people, an easier way in than saying, spirituality and everything else. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's also about raising awareness that when you talk about a haunting or a ghost, it's not a simple one-layered thing that you're talking about. You're not talking about someone walking past wearing a sheet and going boo. It's much more multi-layered than that. And it could be your own subconscious that you're tapping into an image that's replaying over time, or it could be someone that's remaining there with a level of consciousness that can communicate with you. And I think the work that I do, it stemmed from a personal interest, but much more now when I see the reaction of people who hear me talk on the subject, that they're fascinated. And I don't know if that's because sometimes you see a lot of men out there doing this who've been doing the work for a long time, and people feel quite intimidated because they feel that, well, if I question, the reality of the universe, if I question the paranormal, if I question ghosts, then I'll look stupid. And actually, we need to try and bring it down to a much more basic level. It doesn't have to be that complicated, but it all depends on how willing you are to understand it and embrace it.
Well, that's true. That's true. It doesn't have to be that complicated, but I think when you go down the rabbit hole, it can be beyond our perception and conceptualization right now of what that is. But that doesn't mean you can't find the answer. Now, with hauntings, I channel. It's something I've been doing for 2 years now. It's something I've hated doing. It's something I've walked away from almost. But now I'm doing a channeling documentary, and it seems to be, I've got the domain name channeling.com right now, and it looks like that's the way my career is going to go with this work, right? And with me bringing my own truth through, making it up as I go along, because I think that's the way out of the paradigm, is to make up your truth. And I think that breaks you free then of the construct which this reality is, which it keeps you in. Now, if I'm using words here that are, you don't agree with, that's cool. Please say this is what it's all about for us to expand, right? My channeling told me, and I do fight my channeling, that the haunting phenomena is the idea where a past life aspect meets its future life incarnation. So a soul that's incarnated in the past, that has got trapped and has not moved on, carried on, whatever that is. We're using human words here for. So to say you carry on to the light and all this, who knows, right? But it's when it meets its future incarnation, so the soul in this, me and you, our future incarnation now that's incarnated now, it recognizes it, and it doesn't understand what but it recognizes it, and that's why it attaches. And that's why some hauntings attach to certain people. It's a future life aspect of past life aspect, maybe in a future life as well, but a past life aspect seeing its current incarnation. Now, the funny thing was, I was interviewing a channeler in Illinois just a few days ago, Carl Mollison, and he said the same thing to me. And I was like, shit, that's the information my channeling brought through as well. Are we making up the same thing here, or is there some truth in that? So have you ever heard that before?
I haven't, but I'd be curious how that might explain multiple experiences in the same place, especially by people who don't know necessarily of anyone else's experience. You get people who will go to a particular location and they will say, well, I saw X, Y, Z, and then find out later that other people have seen the same. And I'd be interested to know how...
What about if those people are all from the same soul group or something like that?
Yeah, of course. The wonderful thing about it is that obviously, depending on your own personal belief system, you can create, I suppose, an answer, if you like. I personally
that's what
don't
I'm saying.
believe
Make it up.
There is any one answer.
Make it up.
Yeah.
That's the only way out of this illusion. You see, the thing is, right, I believe that this illusion or whatever this is, right, so wants to keep us away from knowing what the truth maybe is, because we've agreed to do a forget-me-not of what this is, so that we live this incarnation now without being lost on, oh, I've remembered, so what the hell, why do I need to be here, kind of thing. I'm not saying that it would be that, but something like that. And there are trails sometimes for you to find it. And I know that, you see, a few years ago, the last thing I would have said is make it up. That's the last thing I would have said, right? But it's almost, that's one way out of trying to figure out that I think that's, to me, that's one thing that I try to use to, if you can come up with something that you think fits, but maybe there is something more in that than you think. Maybe you're remembering something.
Well, yeah, it's sort of formulating your own reality, isn't it? And we've all got our own individual perceptions of reality. And I suppose if you build on that, then as long as that makes sense to you, and it's something that even that other people can also relate to, then who's to say that that's not the answer? Who's to say that that's not actually the way that it is?
Well, I was interviewing channelers yesterday, Pierre and Cullen. They channel Larkmar, And I was asking Lark some deep questions. I think one of them was, have we already crossed over? Is this an illusion to ourselves to make going back home easier, so that it's not all of a sudden bang, there you go, you're in some floaty place or something, whatever, right? And it was interesting. What they said was, the most powerful place that you can be is in present moment. But from present moment, then you're able to create a new truth of what you think this reality is. And that's the place that you can remember if you have forgotten to yourself of what this is, what this may be. And now, I know I'm talking in riddles here, and people will listen to this will be, what the hell is he on about? But that's the answer that came through, and it really made me think yesterday, is that okay, so keep it in present moment, but the truth is here of what this illusion is.
That's if you subscribe to the idea that it is an illusion, of course.
Well, yes, and an illusion is just a word that, is it that? I mean, the illusion's pretty good. It's like the Matrix, you bang your head over by a 2x4. If I'm going to stab myself in the hand, I'm going to feel it, right? And there's going to be a repercussion for that and everything. But when you think of where we go to, wherever we end up, I don't think it's what people are saying it is. I think it's even bigger than that.
Yeah, well, we know very little, actually, don't we? Not only about the universe, but about ourselves and the powers of our own mind. So it's perfectly acceptable to think that, yeah, we are part of some huge swirling cosmos that we won't know about until we pass over. I mean, how many times do you think we may reincarnate, if we reincarnate at all? Do we need to reach a certain level of awareness, of consciousness, of acceptance before we stop reincarnating? But then where do we go if we do? I mean, it's questions upon questions. It's wheels within wheels, isn't it? And I think to a degree you can tie yourself up in that and never really feel that you're reaching an answer that fits.
Well, no, but then to not look at it, I think as soon as you become awake, you start to look at this. I think it's a natural progression of waking up. And I think that's why most souls don't want to wake up, because they want to be told what to think, what to do, what to say. I think when you do go to that stage, I've seen people that have switched themselves off from the whole subject, that have gone so far and that say, I just can't do this. This is just, I don't want this. Have you ever tried?
Well, I meet people every day that don't believe that there's anything else. That they think we're a machine, our brain is a machine, we live, we die, we fertilize the earth, end of. That there's nothing else. And I think for a lot of people, that's just much easier. It's much easier to believe that, because then you don't have to think about the consequences of your actions.
Exactly. So true.
But also it is simpler. I mean, life's very complicated anyway.
Well, I always say, from the spiritual realm, what teaching information can we bring into the present moment now to make the present moment now better? And that's why I got into channeling. Have you ever tried channeling or ever got into explored the subject? No, okay.
Not really.
No. So you haven't. Okay. Have you ever done ayahuasca or anything like that?
No, I haven't.
No, okay.
No.
Okay, that's just another way in to see other. I mean, I've never tried. I'm gonna do it, but more out of curiosity. Do you know what I mean? I think channeling for me has been my Pandora's box or my third eye opening. I think what I'm saying to you is, as a host, my message to you is, or as someone like what you're doing, you can go beyond these layers that you're at now, and you can go much further, and you can find your own truth. And I think it can be very satisfying. I mean, it depends what your soul's looking for, I suppose, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I've had out-of-body experiences, but they weren't intentional. They weren't intentional at all, and they happened. And it was only years later. I'll give you just one brief example. When I was 17, and I'd recently lost my cousin, as I mentioned at the beginning, my parents went on holiday and they left their car and said, no, don't drive. But obviously, being 17, I took the keys and I went for a spin in the car. And I'd been driving for a couple of minutes and I was looking at the radio, and I looked up and there was a queue of traffic in front of me that I hadn't noticed. I was doing probably only about 30 miles an hour, but it was quick enough that I should have hit the car in front. And all I did was close my eyes, pulled the wheel. And the next thing I knew, I opened my eyes and I was around the back of a pub to the left. So I'd managed to go through a line of parked cars, a row of about 10 bollards, a car park, and I was back around the other side. And I just sat with the engine running. I didn't know what had happened. It was almost as if in that moment someone picked the car and carried it to a safe place. And that's the only way I can explain it. But at that age, I didn't really think too much about it. I just thought, oh, that was lucky, close call, and that was it. But then years later, the more involved I got in this kind of research, the more it kept coming back to me, that experience, and the more I realised I can't explain that. I don't know exactly what happened.
But have you ever read the Seth material?
No, I haven't.
Edgar Casey material?
No.
Dolores Cannon?
Yes, yeah, I know.
A bit of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, one thing I find as well in this field is that, you have to delve into a few of these subjects. Yeah, I'm not being trying to be awkward here, right? I'm trying to. You'll look back on this and say, well, he wasn't so much of an arsehole. I think maybe you got a point. I can be an arsehole sometimes. I think there is a lot of it. I think you have to go with the information that you feels a pull to, right? So like Dolores Cannon, that's a great place as well, right? She was a lady that really opened up minds by taking people under hypnosis and bringing that information through. And I know a lot of people will say, yeah, well, anything can come through the mind in that space. But she was connecting a lot of dots. One patient would say one thing, another patient from another side of the world would finish the conversation off, and then someone else from the other side would, and it was a demonstration of that there's something more, and consciousness was talking through her, through the people. I channel, consciousness talks through me and other people that way, whether you think it's a load of rubbish or not. And it's so easy to poo-poo. I mean, I'm the one that does it, and I poo-poo it sometimes, right? But I'm not doing it as much now, right? I've come at peace with it, right? There is, on TV we see these shows, right? These paranormal shows, and I think it's it's at the level that the entertainment needs, right? It makes money, it entertains people, great. Everyone needs entertainment, but there is the truth, and then there's the selective truth that people are given, right? Yeah. There is such a much bigger dimension to this work. Than we even understand, even me and you in this moment right now. It's so much deeper. So even the level that I've gone to, I would say it's still surface level.
Yeah, of course. I think when it comes to the paranormal entertainment and the media generally, what you're seeing is not a true representation of any aspect of the paranormal that I know. I mean, you catch glimpses of people doing paranormal investigations, and you see the night vision and the jumps and the scares.
Give me the rope now, please.
It's so incredibly
tacky,
and yet there is a market for it.
Of course, we love it. We love it.
There's a market for everything. But I think, generally speaking, I mean, I can't speak for everyone, but I think generally speaking, people who watch those kind of shows, as you say, they're doing it for entertainment. They're doing it for the same reason you go to see a horror movie. They want to be scared. They don't actually want to understand or question what's going on necessarily. They just want the fear factor, and that's fine. But if you're actually genuinely interested in what's going on, you don't. I don't watch those shows, and most people I know don't watch those shows. But they're popular, and they are what they are. They serve their purpose.
Of course they do. Of course they do. That's so true. They serve a purpose. And like I said in the interview, if it's just awakening that person who's on the very tipsy of wanting to awaken, and that's an easy way in, then that's the way in. That's great. You know what I mean? I'm not saying we should all be awakened. I mean, I still question. Like I was speaking to Mark yesterday, the entity that was speaking through Pierre and Cullen. Why awaken? What is the real point? Do you know what I mean? Why? Wouldn't it be easy to be asleep? But there's something greater going on, I believe. There's something greater going on, even from the perspective of maybe they're asleep for us. Or, or this is something, some sort of, not virtual reality, but it's something that we don't understand, and that the understanding is there. And how many times have we been on the Ferris wheel? When you see the planet where we are right now as a species, what's going on in the world, right? And you say, well, if we all become a bit more like Eckhart Tolle, a bit more in the present moment, a bit more spiritual, wouldn't it change overnight? But then why are souls so hungry, it seems, to want to come down here, to have these freaking experiences where I'm the victim, you're the perpetrator, and all this kind of stuff, right? And we're freely allowed to do this. So in that free allowance, it's like, Dolores Cannon would have said, this is the planet we come to experience and everything else. But then why are we awakened? I always keep saying that in these interviews. Why bother? In some respects,
I think also as well, maybe some people aren't supposed to be awakened. Maybe it would be too dangerous. I mean, we're not all good people. There are awful people in the world, and if they were to become fully awakened, how dangerous would that be? It may not work in the way that we would like it to work, in that they suddenly become enlightened and good people. It could work in another way. There are evil people in the world who will use whatever knowledge or power they get for bad and not for good,
unless they've got some attachments on them, and the attachments don't want mankind to wake up and be spiritually awakened, because the attachments aren't happy about even where they're at. So why should they want anyone else to awaken? I think there's a lot of attachments on people. Would you say you've come across that?
What do you mean by attachments? Sort of spirits, entities, anything demonic?
But is there such thing as demonic? Is there really such thing as demonic? Or
I'm doubtful. I think there's good and bad. I think there's light and dark.
Yes,
of course.
Attachments. What I mean by that is that if you're a soul that's maybe, well, we're all a soul, aren't we, having a human experience, right? But if you're a soul that's trapped or haven't moved on, I don't really know what that means, but you're not where you think you're awakened, but you're only half awakened, and you don't really understand where you are, maybe, right? You've crossed over, right? And you see someone that's got an addiction to alcohol or already, so you attach them because you get to feel the feelings of the alcohol, but from a feeling perspective. So that person becomes a worse alcoholic. Or someone that smokes, so you attach yourself to someone that smokes because you're still getting the sensational high from it, or someone, or whatever it may be. Attachments, I've come across that with a lot of people say that there are attachments out there on people. Whether that's true or not, I don't know, but I'm just saying that's what I think it is.
I'd be open to I'm open to the idea of attachments. I mean, people, when I talk about haunted locations, I also believe that objects as well can not necessarily be haunted, because what are we talking about when we talk about haunted? If you believe that a large building, something in terms of physics just made of particles, if you believe that can retain and replay events or energy, a person, the soul of someone, then it's not too far a stretch to believe that a smaller inanimate object could do that. Now, I'm not saying that dolls like Chucky could get up and run around and start killing people because they're possessed by an evil spirit.
Freak me out, that would, yeah.
That's just, that's venturing a little bit far into the bizarre. But what I believe, and I think we see this with psychometry, is that attachments are all around us. And as you say, people, places, objects, they're not just what you see. Everything's not just three-dimensional. I think everything gives off an aura, gives off energy, and I think some people can pick up on that.
Well, as Dolores may say, and other people have researched it as well, what if consciousness chooses to have experiences even as a rock, or even everything has got consciousness in it, because consciousness wants to experience everything. I mean, maybe that's where that energy comes from, that you're talking about attachment in items.
I mean, it's not a new theory. I mean, it's rising in popularity now, this idea of haunted objects. But actually, thousands of years ago, the Japanese were talking about spirits having a soul when they reach their 100th birthday. And it's one of those things that has kind of been accepted throughout time, but then we've lost belief, and now it's sort of creeping back. But again, the media's got a lot to answer for, because people aren't actually seeing this type of phenomena for what it potentially is really. It's more the Hollywood dramatics.
And you say to yourself, why is that? If there's people like me and you that are spiritually awakened just in these little tiny niches, then there must be people awakened in the Hollywood types as well. But is there, I don't believe in conspiracies and stuff like, well, I'm sure some conspiracies are true, but I mean, I don't believe in all of them. Do you know what I mean? But are we suppressing our own selves purposefully?
Yeah, possibly. I mean, there's people who believe that chemtrails are to blame for a lot of it, don't they? You know,
God,
that we're being kept sedated because
yeah,
the forces that be don't
yeah,
want us to question things. Now, I
oh
think
God,
that's ridiculous.
yeah.
But of course, if you want to believe something, you will believe it and you will follow it, and whatever else is thrown
Conspiracy
in
is
the
fear.
way
A
of
lot of
it.
conspiracy is fear based. And what is fear?
Yeah.
It's very attractive. Fear sells. Fear
Yeah.
sells massively. You've only got to look at some of these lecturers that promote it, and it's like, Christ, the sellout audiences and everything.
It's also the idea of being the victim. You know, it's one of those things where, oh, we're all poor us, we're all under this sedation, we can't break free of it. And then, of course, anything that you do, you don't blame on that, but it's almost like you're detracting, you're giving away the responsibility for your own
Good.
actions
I'm so glad you
for
said
this
that.
kind of thing.
Where's the solution? Where's the solution? There's never a solution. It's never, we'll tell you the problem. Where's the solution? I always say it was not that the solution's a spiritual solution. The solution's a spirit. Do you feel that we are all one?
I do, yes, I do, and even good and bad, light and dark. I think you need everything. I do believe that we're all part, at least part of something bigger, of one well-oiled machine, I suppose. But yeah, I definitely, and I think that can explain why. I mean, we see it a lot more with twins, picking up on people's pain, emotions, feelings. But I think we all have the ability to do that to some degree. You can walk into a room where people have been arguing, and you don't necessarily need to know that they have, but you can feel what they're feeling. You can feel the uncomfortable atmosphere. And they're just all tiny nuggets, tiny snippets, glimpses into the wider potential that we've all got.
Do you do this work at all? Because I mentioned there about the way that mankind's going right now and the state of the world. Okay, I do this work because I'm I do want to get it out to more than just the micro show that I've got right now. I mean, I'm grateful for it, but I want to do something more than this, yeah. And I mean, I would like to promote the work in the sense of spirituality as a way forward to bring some peace in the world. At least spirituality to me is not what it's defined in the dictionary. I don't agree with that. I think spirituality with me is that we are one, and that we're a soul having a human experience. Maybe that's not the definition of spirituality. So I do it because, to try to bring us to that place where we can see what you do to another, you do to yourself. Would you come from that space at all for any reason for doing this work?
Yeah, I think so, because one of them, apart from being a fascination for me for all, the whole of my life, the other reason that I do this is because, as I said, I come from a counselling background. I studied in counselling and psychology, and so when I began to visit spiritualist churches and I saw the reactions of people to mediums who were giving them messages from the other side, the great comfort that it brought, I knew that there was something in that, and I knew that there was something I could offer more than an explanation or reassurance that, okay, your house isn't haunted, you can all go back to being normal. It's more than that. When I sit with someone who calls me for help, I can spend 2 or 3 hours talking to them, and it can be very personal, because a lot of the time people doubt themselves, either because they have alcohol dependencies, drug dependencies, relationship issues, and they need to talk about all of this, because if they don't, then they can't really even begin to get to grips with anything at a deeper level. And so the role of a paranormal investigator is really multi-layered. There's much more to it than people who watch, Ghost Adventures or whatever may believe.
Yeah, absolutely, and I'm sure when you go see some of these people that some of the cases that have turned out to be true, there is a genuine essence there, and one of the, I suppose you do get mediums to come to some of your places, do you, to get readings on what might be there?
Yeah, we do. We have one guy who we use who is brilliant, and unfortunately, how things are today, you always have to approach it as a skeptic initially, sort of, false until proven true kind of thing. Because if I took someone in to someone's home and said 100% absolutely, this person, whatever he tells you, it's going to be accurate, then I'm not doing my job properly. But this guy has given full names, information that there's no way, he could have known. So yeah, there's definitely a use for mediumship.
Absolutely. And I think sometimes with the mediumship, my understanding of it, my truth as I keep inventing it, has gone on to the point where, sometimes when you go to see a medium and they don't get you right, they may be picking up on a potential parallel reality version of yourself. Yeah, they may be thinking they're picking up on your future aspect of yourself, but maybe it's on the road that you're going on right now. If you go down the road with your as it is right now, that's what's going to happen. But in every psychic reading, you have something called free will. There is no psychic can tell you 100% that's how it's going to be, because you're the free will agent in this. So if you're going to go see it, get a reading from someone, and you're going to change something, well, guess what? Then it's not going to stick to the way that they said it was, because you've had the free will to change it. And I think sometimes as well, on top of that, right, it's also, parallel realities. If there's multiple infinite versions of ourselves out there, as our soul split off to have these infinite reality experiences, then they may be just picking up on a bleed through sometimes. Maybe.
And I think also it's never going to be as black and white. It's not like making a phone call. A psychic medium can't dial a specific person and purely receive information from them all of the time. I've known mediums who are completely tormented by it, because when they go to bed at night, it's almost like a train station. It's so busy. There are voices and people desperate to be heard. And it must be very difficult to home in every time on one specific person. And there are bound to be occasions where you get drips of information that are coming from other people, other consciousness.
And what else? What if as well that sometimes they're told purposeful, misleading information. Purposeful, because they want you to take responsibility for yourself. They don't want to be the drip feed, so they'll purposefully give you misinformation for you to say, you know what, this isn't what I want, or I'm going to take responsibility now, or they got that wrong, so I'm going to be in charge. No, that's exactly what they wanted you to do in the first place. But to the medium, that's exactly what they were hearing.
I think one of the biggest criticisms mediums face is that of, well, why can't you just give me a full name? Why is it, John's coming through or Keith's coming through? Why can't you give me a full name? Why can't you give me... I don't know why that is. I don't think that proves that mediums are lying and that they're fakes. I certainly don't. But maybe, as you say, it's because they don't want to give us all of the information all of the time.
Take responsibility. Absolutely. So maybe it comes down to that. Maybe, it's we don't. To say it's so black and white. Some people, it's not. I don't think it is. I don't think it. And if this is a reality where you've had the forget-me-not, where you don't want to, your soul doesn't want you to remember quite, because otherwise it doesn't. You were the one that told it not to, right? In a sense, right? Before you came down here, maybe, right, or whatever. Maybe there's deeper things going on, and if people were watching this may say, nah, perfect excuse just to let them off. They're a con artist. Well, of course some are, right? In some respects, you get bad builders. Look at the amount of bad building programs you get on the TV. In any industry, there'll be someone that takes advantage of it. So you have to use discernment. But I think that's what there are major differences, between a psychic reading and a channeled reading. A channeled reading is a chance to speak to your soul. It's a chance to get teaching information through, which is very different to what a psychic medium will do. They're two very different things.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, because and again, a lot of psychics say, well, I'm not a medium, I'm a psychic.
Yep.
And that there's a difference there. And it's quite a grey area, but I do think you can develop either, or I think a lot of psychics can or do have the potential to perform mediumship. I think a lot of mediums have the potential to perform act of a psychic ability. And again, with anything like psychometry or ESP,
sat in here, I scratched my head.
We all have these abilities.
Yeah, I scratched my head because I'm like, oh Christ, I've been told this so many times, man. What is the difference between a psychic and a medium? And at the same time, I want to answer that to say, hang on, we are all psychic. We are all soul having a human experience. They're only tapping into their soul and tapping into that aspect of them that we all have. But we've chosen maybe not to use those skills as profoundly in this lifetime. What is the difference between a soul and a medium, a psychic and a medium? Then I can't remember.
Well, a medium would act as an intermediary between the living and the dead, so they're able to communicate with the dead. I think a psychic is more able to give you, maybe look into the future, maybe give you predictions, tell you about your own life, your own
that's
path,
probably it,
and not necessarily communicate with the dead. I think that's what they would sort of classify themselves maybe as that.
Is the dead though? All this about dying. Well, I know
exactly. Do we even die? Is there such a thing? It's a human word. We've made that up
of course we have.
to
We're so good at
describe what happens when our shell ceases to function.
Yeah.
But of course, energy can't be destroyed. So, we project energy all of the time. So it's perfectly reasonable to me to believe that actually that thing that makes us who we are, that uniqueness, that energy, all of our emotions and our feelings, that doesn't just displace, because that, to me, that wouldn't make sense for everything just to stop functioning as soon as your heart stops beating.
Well, what's beyond the universe?
Another universe potentially, isn't it? A universe within a universe
What's
within a universe.
What's beyond that?
We
What's
have
beyond that?
absolutely
What's beyond that?
no idea.
I had no, go on.
Maybe what's beyond all of it is ourself. Does the universe exist only within our own consciousness? We're all the creator of our own destiny.
Right.
So,
right. Well, you've just gone deeper there. You've just gone. Well, where do you go with it? You go deeper. You say, okay, well, what's beyond that? Then is my conceptualization of God right? Maybe God is another word for love, and maybe there is no God. God was us all the way along, disguised as a word. It's love. We always say, in all spiritual teachings, and if I've interviewed enough people to know this is one fact I can say, is not me making it up, right? Is that the most important message in everyone's work is love is the only answer. Is God then love? Is God, the word spelt backwards, dog, just a word? Is this been a word that we've used as the forget-me-not and everything else to mix in there to say, right, well, really forget everything now and stew it all up, right? Silly little humans. There you go. Yeah. Is God us? Was it love all the way along?
Well, religion is man-made. Religion is a man-made concept, really.
You're in trouble now saying that. Yeah.
But it throughout time, we all have, or most of us have, you may have an ultimate belief in something bigger than yourself, but a lot of different civilizations have created their own version of how they should present that and what that means. You've got the Bible, the Quran. It shouldn't really. I'm not a big fan of religion as such.
Normally.
I think religion is within us, and we've all got our own way of dealing with it and expressing it. And I don't think if you go to church every Sunday it makes you a good person or anything like that, because it is man-made, that kind of indoctrinated way of behaving.
I can't believe you're talking like this. This is terrible talk.
I'll be struck down.
You'll be struck down. There's a past life version of you that's burning along with me as well.
It doesn't mean that I don't believe in a God or a creator or something bigger.
Or was that you? Are you the God?
Well, yes. We don't know. And again, I'll come back to, I honestly don't believe that we're supposed to know 100% while we're
is that the perfect illusion to yourself never to dig deeper? Is that the perfect excuse to yourself never to not think bigger? But then I'm not being hostile to yourself there, because I think you're a lovely person, and I think let's just bring it back to present moment. That's where the point of power is right now, right? So anyone that wants to live the most empowered life, it's being in present moment. But do we say these things sometimes, like, it's too big, can't see it, it's too big, it's ununderstandable, I'm not going to look there, forget it. What would be happening to ourselves if we went beyond that thinking?
Do you know what I think it is? I think it's that it doesn't stop you looking at the bigger picture. But for me, I believe I'm willing to keep my mind completely open to the possibility that everything I believe may be wrong. And I think that's a problem for a lot of people. Depending on which path you choose to go down, you can dig deeper and deeper and deeper. But at some point, you also have to remember that you could be wrong. It could just be a theory. And I think actually that's possibly the most enlightened you can be, is that you're keeping that open-mindedness, that actually, although this makes perfect sense to me, I could be wrong.
Well, yeah, but you could be wrong even to the sense that it could have been even greater than what you can even imagine.
Yes, yeah, of course.
Because by saying you could be wrong, I think it takes away some of the work that you've done, because there has been evidence that you personally know has been there, that you personally have experienced, that you probably haven't told many people, or maybe you have, but there's something personal stuff that's gone on that you can't explain to anyone. Now, where the freaking hell does that come from? And I think it takes away those experiences, and I've had them as well. I was at I've been writing this book, right? This channeled book that I've been bringing through, right? Fighting it all the way. I've said that, right? And I was at this medium show, and this medium's there in this room. It's spiritual fair, and the medium was there. And I was sat next to the lady that I was channeling with, right? That I had been channeling with. It was at this fair. We just went there, right? This was about a year ago. And this medium turns around to the lady next to me, goes, "I'm being told there's a book to write. You've got to finish this book." I'm like, hell, how did he know that? Do you know what I mean? How would he know that? I'm like, oh, there you go. That was a little bit of inspiration you were looking for to keep doing that book. Things like that you can't explain. Yeah.
Of course, a skeptic would say that, well, he took a pot luck and that it's a 50-50 chance that you were writing a book.
But there is no 50-50. That's beyond 50-50 pot luck to me. That's beyond it. So I would have to say no.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen psychic mediums who've said to me things that I don't think they could have possibly guessed, things that were so spot on. When my cousin died when I was about 19, so a couple of years later, I took some flowers to her, and they were large lilies, and the pollen stained the seat of my car. It just stained, and I couldn't get it out. And when I went to see the medium about 6 months later, he said, she just wants to say that she's really grateful for the flowers, and she's really sorry about the mess they made of your car. Now, for me, that isn't cold reading. That isn't guesswork. Yes, people take flowers to gravesides, of course, but how many people have those flowers stain their car seats? It just doesn't add up. So, yeah, there is so much that we can't explain, or we can explain if we choose to follow a certain explanation. I'm quite open to the possibility that he was tuning into me, to my consciousness, to my thoughts. Yeah. And I'm open to the possibility that actually, no, he was speaking to her.
And even if he was tuning into your consciousness, your thoughts, my God, that even says there's a greater reality of something.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think you're right. I mean, let's not get addicted to it has to be this way. I think that's part of the problem. That's part of the problem. When we get addicted to that, we're never able then to move beyond it, because our truth is the truth, and the truth and the truth. Just like you were saying about religion, there's only this truth. You go against it, you're going to go to hell. You're going to burn. You're going to do it. Do you know what I mean? I think, as you were saying about religion before, I think it's a great way to control people. It really is. And that's what it was for. But it's also a nice way to bring communities together. There is a loving side of it as well, right? There is a beautiful side to it as well. But yeah, even if what he said to you, that medium, is some proof of something, it may be more than what we can understand, as you say. So, yeah, so there you go. We've worked it all out, and now what we're going to do with our lives now.
Who knows? I think all we can try to do, the bottom line for everyone is just try to be good people. And if you choose to go down a more spiritual path, if you choose to delve deeper and to try and understand the big question, why are we all here, where do we all go, then perfect. If not, then that's fine too, because we're all different and we don't all need to be, as you said, awakened. And maybe not all of us are supposed to be.
Doesn't seem like it to me, and I just, we talk about this world of some people talk about this world where it's going to be all peaceful and everything else and all amazing, and I'm like, well, not the way it's going. Now, there's something I've just ended on this, something very interesting came through the channel information yesterday, which was those that are not going to make it and that don't want to be destructive and continue to be destructive are not going to come back to this planet. They'll go to another Earth. Now, Dolores talked about this as well, right? And when I strained them on this question, they actually said that they will be going to another Earth that's just like this. They will not know that they've incarnated on a different Earth, and it's a different reality compared to the one that we're on. And I thought, oh, that's the missing part of the key there. They're going to go to a place just like this. You would have no idea that it's no different, but it's not the same place as we'll be carrying on in future lives if we choose to come back here. So maybe there is some sort of evolution going to take place, and maybe it's taking place now for even me and you to have these conversations.
Yeah, absolutely. Because we see it throughout time, things happen for a reason, things change for a reason. I don't believe that existence and consciousness is a whole string of coincidences. I don't think things just happen. I think that there is a path, there is a pattern, and we're all part of that. But whether we choose to accept it, and whether, some people just aren't even interested. That's again a very personal thing.
Until someone around them passes away, or until they have got cancer, or until some other life-changing thing happens in their life. Maybe until those points they're not supposed to.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my husband always says to me, you only ever see old people going to church 9 times out of 10. And why is that? They're people who didn't go to church when they were younger, but suddenly they're reaching a point at which they feel closer to the point of needing that, needing to know that they've led a good life, needing to know that, that they're going through the pearly gates or whatever. And I think we do. I think it does take something to happen to you. It does take for your life to change, to start thinking along those lines.
God's waiting room, that's right. Yeah, entering that space. Yeah, yeah, it does, and that's it as well. And I would never judge anyone. If I've got a partner in the future that's completely not into these subjects, I'm really cool with that. I think, right? As long as she's cool with what I'm doing, right? But I think I'm cool. I'm cool with that, and I love people no matter what they're into. Do you know what I mean? It really is. But I think it comes to what you said, and what this worker's journey has taken you is that if you can be nice to each other and love each other, that's an important part as well. So
yes, absolutely, that's the main thing.
Yeah. Okay, well, and your website is?
It's www.hdparanormal.com. I also have my own website, which is jayne-harris.com.
Okay, well, we've been putting those website links throughout the interview on here as well. Thank you for putting up with me.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you for inviting me on. I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's really nice to get you on, and I really hope I can see you doing all sorts of things in this field. I really can, and I think you've got an opportunity here to really to shine the torch and to maybe even go further than you thought. And I think you will. I think
possibly.
You will.
Yeah, possibly. There are a lot of misconceptions, and little by little I am sort of addressing them very slowly, reaching 1 or 2 people at a time. So that's all I can do.
Well, if you can see me, I'll be behind you waving a flag and pushing you and say, further, go further.
Thank you.
Push that barrier.
Thanks, Kevin. That's really kind.
Well, listen, I'll leave my love with you and just thank you so much for coming on today. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Well, we've come to an end on today's show. Don't forget that you can listen and watch all our past interviews on the More Show's official YouTube channel. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel for new daily shows. You may also find out more on all past and upcoming guests on the show via themoreshow.com, and do like us on Facebook and Twitter for the latest updates. So until next time, be safe.